when I left the theatre, I thought that's the end of it all. But after a year not being in it, I did kind of miss it. So I joined an amateur company in Bristol just to keep my hand in. And it went from, I was able to get good parts, really good parts. And one day, one of the ASMs came to me. She said, Ken, why don't you go back in the professional theatre? You know, you want to go back. I said, look, darling, I've been in it, I didn't like it. She said, look, Ken, my brother works in the RSC, and I know that Peter Hall is looking for experienced actors to play the small part, rather than these boys from RADA or whoever it might be. She said, why don't you write to them? I said, look, darling, I've written these letters hundreds of times and nothing has ever happened. Please, Ken. So simply to pacify this girl, I did write to the RSC with my photograph and my CV and said, here I am. Yeah. So when I saw her next time, I said, look, Wendy, I have written to the RSC, don't ask me again. All right, Ken. I was at the office one day and the phone went up with my mother. She said, Ken, she said, the telegram's arrived. I said, what? She said, yes. Well, telegrams in those days, you know, could be disaster. I said, maybe owned it. She said, owned it. And the letter was saying that there was an audition at the Donmar Theatre for the RSC at 5 o'clock that day. This was in the morning. At 5 o'clock that day, if you care to attend. So, I mean, I'm only about an hour and a half away by train from Bristol to London. So I spoke to my boss. I said, no, look, you know, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can't really. Would you mind if I just took? Oh, go on. So I went to this audition. When I got there, they were actually rehearsing during Troilus and Cressida at the Donmar, big company. And at the bottom of the stairs were about half a dozen actors, and they were all going up to audition before Peter Hall and Barton at that time for this small part. What happened was one of the actors had fallen out. It was actually a fellow called Freddie Jones, who I didn't know from Bristol. And he'd thrown his hand in. He'd had a temperament, walked out, and as well, he had to shift it all round. So there was one vacancy. That's what happened. So I went up there on this living thing, and because I knew all the pieces. I knew them backwards, Shakespeare, whatever. So I did 2 pieces of modern and Shakespeare before Hall and Barton. And then I came down the stairs that the other boys went up, and we were all waiting, and we usually do whatever. Come on, hurry up, I'll get back to it. So the next chap, what was he called? He became a very good director, but he was Hall's assistant at the time. Clifford Williams. Clifford Williams was, he organised all the auditions. He was Hall's right-hand man. Yeah. And he auditioned it all, he sorted it all up. So then he came, he said, Ken, I said, what? He said, you've got it. I said, what? He said, you've got it. And I was so astounded when I said, Clifford, I must come clean. You know, I'm not a man actor wanting to get a part. I've got a job. You know, I've given up this thing now. I said, it might be difficult for me to get out. Come with me. We went back to his office in the Aldwych. He got his secretary to type a letter saying that Peter Hall requested that I should join the club. You know, a real flowery thing. It was like a royal command. He said, you give that letter to your boss and see what he says. So I went back and I told him, I said, oh, look, because I usually have to give a month's notice, and they wanted me the following week. That was the point. It was a month's notice of a week. So he said, okay, Ken, come on, we'll arrange it all. So anyway, the long and the short of it was that I did leave, and I came down to London to rehearse, and we played Troilus, The Devils, and a new play about Fry called Count Mantle. And to have, I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I was playing a very small parts and understudying principals. And it was bloody hard work. We opened in Edinburgh, we played a 3-month tour. And when I came back at the end of it all for the interview, because then they were organising the Stratford season, Hall said to me, so, well, Ken, you know, you're a bit too old for the young parts, you're a bit inexperienced with that. He said, I think you ought to, you know, get onto TV. And so he said, you'll probably find your feet more in TV than with us. Find my feet in TV. For the next 3 months, I was unemployed. Yeah. And I was back in the same position I was when I was a young man. And again, I got so fed up with this that I'd worked for Hawker Siddeley, and Hawker Siddeley had a factory in Kingston. So I went to their personnel department, told them, oh, they said, come on, you know about these computers. I said, yeah, come on, you're welcome, come on. So I went with them. And from then on, oh no, yes, it's a bit further than that. Okay, I didn't like it there. I got a job, and I joined automotive at Lucas. I was there for 25 years. So at the end of 25 years, I retired early at 60. And I thought, right, I can play you now at your own game. It doesn't matter to me whether I get a job or I don't get a job. So anyway, I found by my contacts an agent who said to me, of course, Ken, there are parts for you. But men of your age don't want small parts. They're established actors, and they will turn them down. There is a market for you, and there was. And I got lots of parts on TV. I got voiceovers. I went back to the RSC. Yeah. She got me an audition for doing a tour, Woman of No Importance, and she said they want a small part and understudying the principal. Would you like to do it? I said, I'll go. And then this is a wonderful experience, John. I went into the Strand Theatre for my interview with somebody Prowse, Philip Prowse was in there. Philip Prowse. So I got on the stage to do my piece, and as I was going, the phone went in the prompt corner, and he said, "Stop, stop, stop! Who's put that phone on?" Now I never knew that they had a phone in the prompt corner, but they did. And he was he said, "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Ratcliffe." He said, "I'll have to ask you to start again, but whoever put that phone in the prompt corner, I can shoot." So, and then again, the long of the short was, I got the job. I was understudying. So I went on a 3-month tour with that. But at the end of the 3-month tour, I was really on my knees. I lost a stone in weight. We played all these huge theatres. We were usually in the top dressing room. I was running up and down these bloody stairs. I had a lot to do in a small part, but a lot of change, a lot of running around. And also, what I didn't like was understudying. If we weren't playing, we were understudying. Rehearsals. Well, I tell you, with the understudy, learning that, and I had a huge part of Lord of England, a huge part. I was understudying, and I heard this thing on the tannoy, and I rehearsed it during the day. We had 2 matinees a week, 8 performances a week. In the end, it nearly almost drove me mad. So at the end, I said to this girl, at the age, I said, "Look, I don't mind doing it, but never, ever again will I tour." Lo and behold, no sooner had we finished the tour, they was being transferred to the Haymarket. And she said, "Kenny is going to," I said, what's she called? I've got her name, Eileen. I said, "Eileen, believe you me, I could not do that play ever again. I'm up to my eyes in it. I can't get away from it." So I didn't go. And after that, unfortunately, the agent retired. I got a new one who kept putting me into commercials. And in the end, I thought, I can't be bothered with it now. I'm getting too old anyway. So now I can officially say that I retired from professional acting, and all I want to do is here. This suits me much better.
This is more for fun, I take it.
Yeah. And it suits me better. And I can, I no longer want to play the leads or anything like that. Smaller parts help me.
So what sort of commercials and that were you thrown into?
Oh, these awful commercials. They were the worst ever. They were absolute, and gobbledygook parts and dreadful directors. Oh, it was awful. I had to go to the wilds for these bloody... And not only that, it became a circuit. If there was an elderly man wanted, you got to know the actors who were up for the part. We were all up for them. And in the end, so I threw my hand in and said, "I'm now officially retired."